Hello and welcome to the LNUR Line podcast. This episode we're doing a special topic on the Brick Train Awards 2021. We have a couple of members with us. So we have Will.
Hello.
We have Miller.
Hello.
Jamie.
Hello.
Henry.
Hello.
John.
Hello.
Levi, our TFOL chair.
Hello there.
And Luke, who's
Hello.
not on camera but is on voice.
I'm here in spirit.
Exactly. Okay, so obviously the Brick Train Awards are virtual global awards for LEGO train fans, and they open for entries from the 1st to the 28th of February 2021. There's more information on bricktrainawards.com, but we're going to run through some of the categories and awards and then open it up to a discussion between all the members. So we're going to kick off with Will covering the 4 locomotive model categories this year.
Yes, so as Carter said, we have 4 locomotive categories. We have steam, diesel, electric, and other. Pretty self-explanatory. The only thing I've been asked to clarify is multiple units will go in the category that they're powered by. So if you have, for instance, the urge to do the prototype TGV, that would be a gas turbine that goes in other. Otherwise, electric's an electric, diesel in diesel, and there aren't any steam multiple units, so why are you asking?
Then.
Thanks, Will. On to Miller, who has become a lot more attractive in this podcast for some reason. And he's going to cover
I'm
the
suffering
wagon
from
category.
COVID.
Okay, off you go on the wagon categories.
Okay, so there's 3 of them, I believe. There's passenger wagons. Obviously, if people pay for a ticket and sit on them, that's probably a passenger one. Freight, of course. That's the stuff that isn't people. And other. So that's things like brake vans, the thing that you put behind things like mallard and displays. And, hey! And snow plows and other special vehicles and all that palaver.
Okay, thank you, Miller. John is going to cover the 3 display categories for us.
Yes, there's 3 display categories. Obviously, this is largely the first one, group display, will be presumably the LEGO train clubs. And there'll obviously be larger displays that we can't do individually. There is a separate category for individual displays, so they'll presumably be a bit smaller. However, both of those categories are you're not allowed to have they're non-digital only, and there's an additional display category which is best structure. Presumably that covers bridges, engine sheds, stations even. So that basically gives us a broad scope. Thanks,
John. Yep. So the structures is any railway related structure, which you can interpret fairly loosely, I think. Okay. And finally, we have the Teenage Fan of Lego, or TFOL categories, and there are 3 of those this year. So Levi, our TFOL chair.
Yes. So there are now 3 this year as opposed to 1 last year. One of the 3 is the locomotive category. This is any and all kind of locomotive, and this is digital and or brick built. Then you've got the wagon, which is any kind of wagon, brick built or digital. And then the 3rd one is Lego display, and this is also digital or brick built. All open for 13 to 18-year-olds with parents' permission.
Great, thank you, Levi. So we're going to run through a couple of rules, which is my job. So you can submit up to 3 entries per category in all categories. You can enter digital models, except like John had mentioned in the group and individual display categories. There are some more instructions on how to enter on the website, but don't enter yet because it's not open until the 1st of February until the 28th. But you can include 6 photographs and 1 video in your submission. For videos, we're accepting links to YouTube, links to Flickr, links to Google Drive files, and there was another one which I've forgotten, but it will be on the website in the FAQs. In terms of parts in the model, it is a LEGO train model event, and we've got rules in place to use some custom parts because I think they do help models excel in quality. So we allow custom rods, custom wheels, so Big Ben Bricks wheels, for example, or shapeways, custom power systems. I'm sure I'm forgetting things. We do allow for modified Lego parts, but we don't allow non-Lego bricks. And I'm sure that's split the membership a little bit, so we can discuss that a little bit later. But that is the rule this year. It's not going to change. Okay, so we can move on quickly. So part of the Brick Train Awards last year, we also ran the LNUR Awards, which any models from UK builders were entered into. And no LNUR members are entered into this one because the LNUR members vote on their favorite model from a selection that we pull out from UK entries. So the LNUR Awards, we have 3 prizes this year thanks to Tech Brick, who are the UK Trix Bricks distributor. And they were allowing digital and physical models again. Any UK builders who are entering into the Brick Train Awards will automatically be entered into that. So we'll do a separate podcast like we did last year with a bit of discussion on the shortlist and then pulling out some winners as well. So thanks again to Tech Brick for sponsoring that. So that's £150 of prizes on top of whatever else there is. And I think we can probably open it out to all members now for discussion. So first, it might be worth checking if everybody's clear on the rules, whether if you're planning to enter something, you want some clarification, because that would probably help other people. So any questions? No, everybody's quiet.
No
Jamie?
questions on my end.
Luke, yep.
No, nothing on my end. Having entered last year just before joining the group, I think it's pretty much still ingrained in my mind. All the rules are basically the same. So yeah, everything's clear for me.
They have changed a little bit, but they are all on the website. So before you enter, read the FAQs page, the frequently asked questions, and read the category page, which has some information on. But yeah, hopefully we've made it.
Yep, of course.
Slightly easier
I have a question.
I thought you might. Go on then.
Oh dear.
I couldn't see a subterranean train section anywhere in the rules. I hope we haven't missed it.
There's a good
feel
reason for
pretty
that.
silly.
Yeah, so that category is underground. So you'd have to burrow and look for that one. Okay. No more questions.
So I'd like to clarification on previously entered locomotives and limit the age of the design. Well,
yes, good point. We had missed that fairly vital information, hadn't we? So this year, you can enter models that you entered last time, as long as they didn't win. So if you didn't win a prize last time, you can enter them again. That's fine. There is a limit on the age of the models this time, which is it must have been completed in the past 24 months or 2 years. So you could have started building a model 4 years ago, but if you only finished it sort of after February 2019, you can enter that. That's fine.
Is the Lego model ever finished?
Well, exactly.
No.
I'm sure you have some job. Don't you have a 10-year-old locomotive you're rebuilding at the moment?
I'm older than that. Yeah. Well, actually,
I
I have a 50-year-old model, believe it or not. I'll come on to that later.
Okay, you should definitely pick that one up. Yeah, that was a good point. Thanks, Will. Anyone else?
Me, if I might. I'm planning to sort of submit the EM1, and it does use a modified version of the pantographs in the Croc, the one that Lego released last year. Would that be okay or not?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there are only so many ways to design elements like that, and most of the model is custom design, isn't it? So
very much so. Yeah, yes, it is.
That's fine. I think there's only so many ways you can design drive systems for trains at this size using Lego components. So I think there's going to be a bit of duplication. if you're just copying somebody else's model and changing a couple of parts, then that's obviously different.
No, that seems fair. I think that's. I think mine's the only EM1 in existence in Lego. I could be wrong, but
It's the only one I've seen. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jamie. Anybody else before we move on? No. Okay, so we'll start with some questions open to everybody. The first is, let's do this one first. So what was your favourite model from last year's Brick Train Awards?
Well, for me, it's obvious. British Bricks P2, because it's British and because it won, of course. That has to be a stand-up model.
That was a really stunning model, definitely. Jamie, I think.
No, I have to agree there. I mean, the P2 was absolutely stunning. I mean, there was one I did see. It was I think it was a Pendolino, I think. But I have to sort of mark it down because I know for fact it does not tilt. So there you go.
Yes, you're all about the tilting trains.
Yes, I am.
Okay, what about John? Did you have a favourite entry from last year?
From what I can remember, I think the P2 was the most impressive for sure. The only downside, of course, it uses it cheats, doesn't it, with the lining, but it's still impressive.
Yeah, and there were some cut parts in there as well, from what I remember.
That's not cheating. That's just clever.
I remember this conversation last week.
Yeah, we have this conversation on a weekly basis. Yeah, thanks, John. What about Henry?
I did really like the P2, but so I'm not repeating. I really like the old bridges of Usatoge Pass, which was the individual display winner for Asia. I think that is a really nice bridge, and the locomotives on top are excellent.
Yeah, it is a nice display, and that it surprised me last year that we got so many entries from specifically Japan in Asia, but I think we did get a couple of Korean entries and a couple of Chinese entries as well. It was yeah, nice to see some unusual prototypes as well.
I have to say I really like the Polish diesels. I don't know if they're Polish, but the guy was Polish.
Yeah. I think
those are really smart.
Yeah. The Australian diesel was pretty smart as well. I can't. Is that Andrew McPherson's possibly?
Yeah.
Yes, that is.
Spirit something or other.
No.
ANR 500
was the
That's the one.
Oh, right.
Miller, what about you?
Guess.
Diesel.
Yes.
No Gronks won, Miller.
It won the LNUR award.
Yeah, but it didn't win any.
Yeah, I was going to say, not officially.
Yeah.
Well, that's the equivalent of
what?
Grammys, isn't it?
Oh. Well, in that case,
Fails to do research.
Oh, good. Okay. You can go
What are these awards?
You can go quiet for the rest of it. So,
I just looked at the diesels. I believe it was Will liked from Europe, from Poland. I think they look great, especially considering they're diesels.
I'm going to have a quick peek.
I really like.
They are very pretty.
I think it was the electric winner for. Actually, it was the global winner for electric, which was the PKP Intercity Train, a Polish one, and that's really impressive. Especially to get a shape of a modern train like that is challenging. Having looked at doing the Class 800.
Yeah, that nose in particular, I could never figure out how to do something like that. That's really cleverly done.
I think I think it's at that sort of at our sort of scale. I think you would have to just cave and admit that in one direction the gradients aren't going to be, or the slopes aren't going.
You'd have to do some kind of balancing act as well to try and make it work.
Yeah. We did highlight, it may have been in a previous podcast, there was a Japanese builder, Yamatai, who had a couple of, I think they're digital only builds at the moment, but he did have a Great Western livery and an LNUR livery Class 800 in Lego digitally, and they looked really impressive.
I know which one I really liked now.
Go on in.
Oh, here we go.
It's the best TFOL model, the West 125 series.
Which one was that?
The global TFOL one. It was Also the Asia winner.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think I can picture. I quite
Silver electric.
I quite liked the. I think it was an America's entry in other Locomotive. It was a track by, I think he's a Canadian builder, and that was really smart as well.
Yes, it was by William Fong.
That's the guy.
Yeah, looking at it now.
That was really nice.
Probably 153.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I think we can move on. So, from this year's categories, which is your favourite category in terms of what, not necessarily one you might enter yourself, but one you're looking forward to seeing the entries for? And we'll start with Miller, since his beady little eyes are staring at me.
How dare you? Best diesel.
That was predictable, wasn't it? Will,
Don't you boo me.
talking of predictable, Will.
Well, I think it might have to be steam trains because they legitimately generate the most interesting techniques.
Lies.
Levi, what about you? Favorite?
Well, I mean, I'd quite like to see what comes out of the best group display, just because they're normally quite large and quite extravagant, and it's always nice looking at the grand scheme of it all.
I think that will be interesting because we've narrowed it down to the last 2 years, and for most of the world there haven't been any exhibitions for the past year. And of course, that huge Australian layout, which won the global group display last year, the Melbourne Lego Train Club, they can't enter that again. So
everybody else has a chance.
Yeah, we might have a chance. There's some really big, nice European layouts. So the Dutch guys, Lowlands Model Lego Train Club, or Lego Model Train Club, I forget which way around it is. They have a pretty big layout, and quite a few of the Scandinavian countries have one, including our friends at the Todd Clonson Danish Model Train Club. So be interesting to see what we get. I think that will be a pretty good category to watch, and the Brick Train accounts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter will be posting entries. Thankfully, Enrico is helping me from BMR this year, so we'll hopefully get through more entries posted, so we can see what's submitted. Jamie, you haven't been yet, so favorite category from this year's awards?
No, I think it'll always be electric, not just because that's what I'm going to be entering myself, but I just like seeing the different techniques and sort of different variety of electric locomotives or electric multiple units that people will be submitting from across the globe.
Cool. Yep, I think that's pretty good. Henry, you haven't been yet, have you?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the TFOL category because there were some very nice builds in it last year, and I'm also really looking forward to the individual display.
Am I right in thinking that you were a TFOL last year and you submitted? Yes. Yeah. So it's I think having more TFOL categories, they're probably my favorite because we had some really talented builders, and it gives them a bit of a chance to showcase their work. John, I think I've missed you so far, haven't I?
Yeah, I think I'm actually kind of looking forward to the individual displays in a way, because obviously there haven't been many group displays in the last year, but is it possible that AFOLs have been concentrating on their own displays and maybe making them better and more impressive? So I think that would be interesting to see. But I have to say my favourite would probably be either steam or diesel locomotives for the various reasons already stated.
I think the individual display is an interesting one because I think last year the America's winner for individual display was a small sort of city display with trains, and
I've got that up now.
Really, really nicely done. And I'd like to see more sort of Lego City style layouts included in the submissions. I think that would be really nice to see.
Don't forget you had Octramber being dioramas last year, so a lot of people may already have small displays set up and such.
Yeah, the Aussies did quite well in that one again. I think there were 3.
Oh God, didn't they just?
winners.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be nice to see some of those because that was a diorama, and I know some of them are really excellent. So it'd be nice to have those in the mix. Okay, what about submissions this year? So if you're planning to submit something, what are you planning to submit? Which category? Unless you don't want to give spoilers away.
I've got a fair whack to enter, and I'm happy to kind of spoil it all.
Go on then, Luke.
Oh God, let me see if I can remember it all first. I think I got it written down. So anyway, steam locomotives in particular, that's kind of my thing. I suppose I could say I've been upping my game because I built a streamlined LMS Coronation, and it's one of my all-time favorite models. I love it so much. That's going to be something I'm going to be entering. I'm going to be entering, what else was there? I've done my Polar Express. I've added some letters to the tender, so it actually says Polar Express. I think that's kind of at its best. That's going to be going in. I think one of the P2s is going to go in as well, just to get the third one in. But to me, they're just all as good as each other, so having to pick one is a bit difficult. For these, I've got a gronks, so I may as well enter it. Why not? It's something else. For the other, I thought about this a few minutes ago when it was brought up. For the other wagon, I think it was for Christmas 2019, I made a sort of gingerbread house themed wagon to go with the Christmas train. And I think that's going to be a good standout model just as its own wagon. There might be one or two other things, but that's basically all the big ones. I can't enter my layout because it's not complete and I can't display it in its full. So sadly, that's going to have to miss out.
There's actually not a rule that it has to be complete, but I suppose you probably want to...
Well, at the same time, the base plates it's built on aren't Lego base plates. They're cheap off-brand ones, and I think that's going to be the kind of killing point for it.
Okay, yep. I can hear some quiet booing. Okay.
Especially from the BMR blokes.
Yeah.
I know they will hate it. I absolutely know they will.
We'll go with you next, and I'm trying to...
building-wise, that thing, and hopefully my signal box.
Oh, yeah.
Although, in fairness, even if I don't get it physically built, there's more than enough evidence of it digitally to show off, but I'd rather have the physical build. I don't know. I haven't decided for rolling stock yet. Probably do vans to because my van design is pretty similar no matter what the overall top is. I'll probably just put all of them in a line and go British vans or something like that. But I haven't decided. I really haven't decided yet. But I'll probably put something in most categories.
What about the tanker wagon?
I mean, now the tanker wagons, 2 of them are brand spanking new, so they can definitely be entered in. One of them's a bit old and a bit too old for that now, but the last 2 are brand spanking new and nice and colourful, so they might have to be entered.
I quite like is the Pug a new design as well, or is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 2 of them. If I did enter it would have to be the Cali, because that one is more evocative and based on a real thing. But I haven't decided yet. The Pug's another one where I might wait until next year when I finally got prints for it and everything, because it's not technically finished yet.
Yes, true. I still need to get prints for mine as well. I don't know what's happened to Miller, so we'll pick on him. Just sleep.
Just to make sure he's still alive.
Oh, the COVID's taken him.
Oh well. Never mind. Who gets his gronks? We just split them up equally.
Can we part them out?
I was going to say, I'll take them for the parts.
Yeah, me and Levo will take a couple for the southern layout.
I already took the design and did my own thing with it. I don't need any more.
I've got my own.
Oh no, there is movement there. There is movement. Oh, hello. Hello.
Same.
Oh, good.
Okay, Chris.
Hello.
What underground trains? Is that what you're going?
I don't bloody know. I've got an EMU, I suppose.
That's true, yeah.
What's the rules on stickers for cabs?
I mean, technically allowed.
Yeah, stick them up your,
But But yeah, that EMU is nice, except
I'll kick
Why are you
off
looking at Carter?
because it's always him.
Yeah, this is true. It is always me. Levi, have we? I don't.
Well, I mean, I've only got 3 built engines, so I might just put them all in. Because I feel like I have a better chance with brick built models than renders. And wagon wise, I've got nothing I'm happy with.
I suppose
yet, so.
Yeah, the digital versus physical thing is something we can pick up on a bit later, I guess. But quite a few digital only models did well last year and got through to the global side, didn't they? At least one did, anyway.
Did they?
Yeah. I'm struggling.
I don't think I mean, looking through it, I didn't notice any of the digital. No, it was the TFOL, the Asian TFOL wasn't it?
Possibly. I can't remember now.
Yeah, the Asian TFOL is.
Okay, what about Henry? I don't think we've picked Henry yet, have we?
No. If I get around to finishing designing it, I'll probably enter my castle class, and if I finish redesigning it, one of my Cadbury's locos, and then for a bit of fun, I might enter my Cadbury's box van because I think I quite like it. Although I'm going to be reworking the buffers so that they look better using the 9-volt magnets.
Cool, thank you. I am really struggling to remember. Have I missed John again?
You did.
Yeah.
You remembered to miss me. Well, I haven't got much built because I've only really got back into the hobby back end of last year, and so I haven't really got much to show for it. Although I am working on a gronk, and it's been sadly held up in terms of progress because of BrickLink delays and Lego Pick-a-Brick delays. So if there's a slim chance that's ready, I would like to enter it just for fun. So yeah, that's probably the only thing I can think of doing in time.
Okay, it's better than nothing, definitely. Okay, so Jamie is next, obviously, and I had not forgotten.
You didn't. So right. Well, the one I will admit that I'm entering, as you probably know already, is the EM1. Structurally, it's complete, but for the first time ever, I'm actually going to have to put some trim line tape on it because, as we saw from the P2 last year, it really added to the model.
It really does work. It really does.
I don't see any reason why it won't add to this. There might be some others I might add to it, yeah. Might have an EMU I want to enter. I might have a narrow gauge locomotive enter, again with a bit of trim line tape, but you'll just have to wait and see, I think, yes.
What about the narrow gauge locos and wagons? They could go in the other category for the loco, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they're kind of widely built enough for that to be its own category in the first place.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point there. With a bit of modification, I think I can enter some of these individual wagons for the narrow gauge, like that little green and white one I could put in there.
You've got quite a nice standard and narrow gauge individual display as well. You've got the little scene you build out.
Yeah, I think the winter layout might be worth it.
Unusually enough, with the sort of snow-covered trees.
Exactly. The thing I need to be very careful about that was when I've set it up for Christmas, I've used like that bus from that sort of winter station and that Mini Cooper from that Mini Cooper layout. So I'm gonna have to omit those. Maybe not. Maybe one or two minifigures, but that I'm not sure about. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay.
Tell you what, when I finally get the play out to a point where I want to enter it into this, I'm just going to put Lego standard set cars on it because that's exactly what appears on it in the shows. I don't think it really matters if you use a few set pieces there.
Would that be allowed?
No, it doesn't. I think that's sometimes what members of the public like at shows, and particularly kids, that you have a huge Lego railway layout, but what are the things they tend to notice? The Batmobile set you've got on it, or some of the superhero figures, or a fire engine that you've just used from a city set or something like that. So
kids love it when they recognise their own toys on your way out.
When they've got that at home, or it's on their birthday list or it's on their Christmas list. I think that is really cool. That's what's nice about Lego. Okay, I think I actually have got everybody. Yep, I did. Okay, so I guess we can jump to a discussion on the digital versus physical models, and it is something that splits the community. Certainly, Pete in LNUR is very keen that models should be built and digital models aren't proper. But my view is, whilst I'd rather have a built model, I think some builders don't necessarily have the budget to buy all the parts for a particular model, and actually some of the renders are a lot nicer than some of the very dark, dingy photos we get. So that, talking of which, there is a Brick Train Awards free photography workshop Sunday the 31st of January, which is this Sunday, if I get the podcast edited in time, at 6 p.m. There's a sign-up link under workshops on the Brick Train Awards website. So yeah, what are our thoughts on digital versus physical models? Should they be allowed? Because we came across a paradox actually the other day. I think I was talking to Enrico, who's from BMR and another judge for Europe. And so we don't allow blue bricks in models. So potentially in a physical model, blue bricks would allow you to use essentially a clone part of a Lego brick. But if the Lego brick doesn't exist in a specific color, you could potentially have used the blue bricks part in a color to match, like the is it green clips on your A3 wheel, or are they just very expensive in Lego?
They are, well, they were £1.50 each for the 36 or so. No, sorry, 50 odd I've got. That, but in I think it's the older shape. Yeah, it's the older shape. The new one, they never did the new one in green. But now they're about £5 each. So good luck recreating the A3.
I guess the paradox there is we don't allow that in a physical model, but in a digital model, we don't place any restrictions on, mostly because judges do not have the time to check every model. But digital models, you could potentially submit a model with a part in a color that doesn't actually exist in production. Or like Will pointed out, you could design a model digitally, which would cost £1,000 in parts because a certain part is particularly expensive. We will open that up for discussion, whether you think it's good or bad, and what the limitations maybe should be. Will, I'll start with you because I'm sure you have.
So unusually for me, because I'm not a particular fan of the excluding of blue bricks bits, because I think that is actually closer to Lego system than some of the stuff I've done on that thing. But my personal opinion is I'm quite happy to see people's renders on the internet when they go, look what I've designed, and I would love to look at them. As you said, they look better. But for the awards, I'm not a fan, because the awards should be about something you can physically build. And we've all done it. We've all designed it in digital and thought that is amazing. And then we've ordered the bits and we've built it, and it's a crock of expletive deleted, because it may work on the computer, but that doesn't mean it works in real life.
Yep.
So I personally would, if I was one of the judges, I would be very, very wary about voting for a digital over a physical model, because you haven't proved it exists. It could exist.
What is interesting is that obviously the judges in each region vary, and each judge has their own views on digital models and on digital models and parts usage and things like that. So that probably is one thing about the awards that isn't very consistent in the kind of application of rules, and it's up to the individual judges if they do or do not like those, and I guess it may cloud their judgment a bit potentially. Okay, anybody else want to pitch in on the digital and physical models debate? Yep, Jamie.
Well, I've got no problem with renderings because in the last 2 years, that's what I've been using. But it has to be the end result. It's not going to be like the only thing you've done. So it's good that if people make a physical model beforehand, regardless of what color of parts, that means they've proven that it works and it is feasible. Whereas if they've just looked on like Studio and just thought that part looks good, I'll just add that without consulting, how available it is, then it kind of sort of takes away sort of the effort that you put into it, as it were. It feels a bit lazy at times, but I can understand why people do renders because they haven't got the parts themselves. They just want to get the shape right and then see how it looks like in real life, like, with more realistic colors, like what I'm doing my design thing. So I'm going somewhere with this. I'm sure I am, yes. But yeah, to be honest, some people prefer renders because they haven't got the best environment to take decent photos of. And I totally understand that. I'm the same. So I think I would, for my preference, I would normally try and submit a model I've made.
Yeah.
But if people are submitting renders, then we just when we take a look at it, we'll be able to see how they've put the effort in regards to what's available and what's not.
I think I guess the other side of that is you could always submit a mixture of renders and photographs of a model. I don't remember anybody specifically doing that last year, but they may well have done. And I suppose the other method of building is build it physically in parts in any color, which is the kind of Levi rainbow.
Mine too, yeah.
Henry does that as well, don't you, Henry?
Yes, I do that until I can't find the rest of the parts, at which point I've got in most of it.
Yep, that's fair enough. Did you have something else to add from chat as well?
Yes, I do quite like the renders because it gives a chance for people to kind of show their inspiration and that they can build good stuff, even if they've not got the money to then go and spend £300 buying it.
I think particularly for the TFOL award, having digital entries is fairer. Yeah, I can see arguments on both sides. John, I think you had something to add to the digital versus physical model debate as well.
That's right. I'm old school here. I like one of the things that I think is the great attraction of Lego. It gets you away from the digital world, and it's a very personal thing. People like to build. I like to experiment build with my hands. So for me, I'm biased towards the real models. But one thing I would say, on taking the personal feeling aside, I wonder how sophisticated the software programs are, such that in terms of fragility of a model, you can design it all and make a fantastic rendering, and if you actually built it, it might crumble and fall apart in your hands. And I think that's something else that's part of the Lego building skill. Isn't just making it look right, it's making it hold together as well, as I'm discovering. So you know, I think there is a lot to be said with would it work as a Lego model, and exploring the real tactile, physical plastic model. So yeah, I'm biased that way, but I wouldn't like to see renders being dismissed, because I think in a way Lego's an art form as well, and artists can work with all sorts of things, and digital art is there, and I think the creations I've seen as renders have been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. My personal method, I don't use it at all. I mean, I've got an example here of how I've started to work on just using old grey bricks to make that's actually the back of a gronk. You can see that, but I'm just messing about trying to get the pattern for the yellow stripes.
Wasp stripes.
Yeah, wasp stripes. Thank you. My personal method is to use physical bricks and use my hands, and I prefer that. But I think my biggest concern is the fragility and whether it's buildable.
Well, as Henry's pointed out in chat, the Studio program for design does actually have a stability test. So it will highlight where it thinks there's maybe not enough I know it looks at stud connections because I had a model recently in Studio, which just out of interest, I ran the stability test and it pointed out that I had a 1x3 plate only attached by one stud underneath. And there was nothing I could do to change that in the model, but it did point out that actually that is a potential weakness in the design. How good that is on other designs, I don't know.
But at the same time, you wouldn't, if you entered a digital model, you could enter it no matter how fragile or how stable it is.
Yeah.
Does that account for, so a good example is me most recent coach. When I built this, I had a problem with the roof because it's one long construction. It's only attached by, originally as designed, it's only attached by brackets sort of there, there, and there. When I first assembled it, the roof stuck up at the ends. Would Studio capture that? Because that is an issue with the interaction of bricks, a lot of plate over a long space. Now, it was easy enough to fix. I just put some more bracket attachments at the ends and shored them up. But
I doubt Studio.
Don't think Studio would account for that. And that is a very major issue that a lot of roofs, another good example is what I've got one of Pete Neumann's designs here, and he's pointed out that, as you can see, it bows slightly in the middle, and there's nothing you can do about that. And I doubt Studio would even pick that up.
No, Studio as well. Obviously, like I said, the pantograph on this is basically a shorter version of the one on the Crocodile. You can't replicate that in Studio. You can't just take the flex tube and trim it. So as far as I know, so you can't just apply that. What?
So you can via the. You'd have to go in the parts editor and create a custom part for it, but so it is.
It's actually very easy, but it's a little bit of a chew on having to do it every time you want a slightly different length tube.
We had great fun with the
parts. Bricklink goes, this part doesn't exist. What are you doing?
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's true.
We had great fun with the parts editor for the instructions for the private owner wagons, trying to get the LNUR stickers on, and it was such a dumb bug as well.
It was a single setting that nobody has ever thought to change.
And you had to change something in a drop down.
Yeah.
So annoying. Yep. Okay. Anything else on digital versus physical models? I think we've covered it.
I don't know if this is going to apply here, but this might be just a preference thing. With physical models, it's probably better because when you take the pictures and the video to submit it, I think with that video, that's your best chance to show it, especially if it's a locomotive that's powered as well. There's more life to that model. With the digital model, I don't think you can really get away with doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were really dedicated, you could animate it, but
there are actually one of last year's entrants, and I can't remember her name. It's a Greek builder. I think she goes by Minds the Brick, and she does a lot of really cool models for, including train-related models for Lego Ideas, and she animates a lot of her renders. So she's got a watermill model which is animated as well, and it's really cool. I think as far as I did look, I was sort of intrigued, so I had a bit of a look online about how you go about that, and it seemed to be 3 different programs or something to get it working, at which point I closed that tab and decided not to do that.
I would thought the easiest way of doing it is to render as many frames as you want, separate frames, and then just use a GIF editor. Something as simple as that, you could do that.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be great quality, but it would actually be relatively simple. It's just how long are you willing to spend slightly moving the wheels, and how long do you want to spend rendering them at what quality?
I think John had something else to add on this as well.
Yeah, actually, it's related to the animation and getting the rendered models to move and all the rest of it. We've all built trains, and obviously we're focused on trains more than anything else. And I think we've all had that thing where maybe we've tried to get something that's tender driven to go around the track without falling off, or the wheels jamming up. So, you know, I don't think the software is going to do that for us, however sophisticated it is.
Yes, you can't test how Lego curves will affect your locomotive, which is why I'm probably not entering the hall this year.
Which is why we've got built.
Because I'm not happy with its route availability yet.
That's what large radius curves are for.
Oh, so you fix the problem by not using Lego elements.
Sure do.
This is what prototyping's for.
Exactly. This is why none of my instructions get released until I've built it once.
Okay, so I think we maybe started to discuss this and then veered off in another direction, which is very typical of podcasts. There's something around the use of parts. So did we finish the discussion on using, say, blue bricks parts versus other parts, and where there has to be a line somewhere because it is a Lego Train award event? Where would individual members shift that line? Would you be even more strict? Because we had a discussion with a couple of people. I can't remember if it was in the Lego Rail Facebook group or somewhere else, but we had a discussion with a couple of people about it should actually be more purist, and you should solve things in a Lego way. So you shouldn't use custom rods, you shouldn't use custom wheels, which I think up to a point is fine. And my life as an AFOL probably started on that spectrum. And then that end of the spectrum, and when you get to those frustrating things like having very chunky lift arm rods on a locomotive that look a bit rubbish, I think that's where custom wheels, because Lego don't produce wheels in all of the sizes that would work at the kind of rough, 1/40th to 1/48th scale that Lego trains are roughly based around. So where would you draw the line individually?
Well, people are going to have preferences, and it's understandable when you look at things like 3D printed wheels, 3D printed drive rods. It's going to make the engine and model look better. But one thing that I did for last year when I entered my city of Truro, for the kind of window section, there's two of these pieces. It's a 1x2 tile with studs on both sides. So you could attach bricks on both ends and have it kind of facing outwards. That's obviously a brick that Lego hasn't made, but knowing that it wasn't a Lego brick, that potentially caused a bit of friction between the judges. I don't think it did, but it was something I was a bit iffy about. When I sent it in, I was like, is it going to qualify? Because, it's not Lego, it's not purist.
There is a chance that just through the bulk of the entries, we do have a pretty good look at the models, but potentially, I guess you could we rely a bit on honesty, because you could potentially slip.
Yeah, I was honest about that, because I did take a picture of the individual brick saying, this is what this is what it looks like. This is going to be a thing that's in the model.
Yeah, I mean, we can't check everything. Last year we got over 700 entries, and although there were, I don't know, I think there were 8 judges or 7 judges last year. 732 entries is what Henry says, which is, I guess you've taken from the website. Yeah. So, I mean, they are split amongst the regions, but the Europe region and the Americas region probably had the heaviest number of entries, and there's only so much that the judges can do. So I guess some stuff might slip through, but we kind of rely on honesty. I think, yeah, it's as fair as it can be. The idea is to include as many people in the Lego Train community as possible, and I think I would say a lot of people, maybe over half possibly, of at least Steam Loco builders would use custom parts on their models.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think if that's the consensus in the community, then it's only fair to allow it.
Where does it do Mega Bloks bricks fall under the same category as blue bricks?
Yes, they would do.
No. Boo.
Yeah, I'm
Not that I've ever used Mega Bloks.
Lego brand.
I am very surprised there was no booing there. I'm almost disappointed.
I'm not that I've actually ever used Mega Bloks, but that's not an idealistic thing. That's just because Studio, which is what most of my design is done in, doesn't do Mega Bloks bricks, and neither does Bricklink, so I just can't access them. There's some really useful ones.
So we have a point from Jamie, and then Henry, and then John. Apparently, we've stirred up some debate. So, Jamie, you're up next.
Yeah, I think that custom parts should draw the limits on whatever custom parts you use if it changes the function of how the model works. So, I mean, like custom rods, custom wheels, custom track, that's fine. That's more of an aesthetic choice rather than anything else, and also with trim line tape, just as long as it just adds to it rather than just sort of,
but then
change the nature of it. So if you're using like a third-party motor to power it rather than using what Lego provide, because that means you have to be very creative on how you manage it. It's like using a Lego motor or Lego cogs to make a narrow gauge train, like I've done, for example. I think that's the very limit of that.
I see the point there, but then there are builders who use custom power systems like Buiz or Miller's Alive almost. So there are some custom power systems which I think are fair. There is a good point that Lego, particularly the power functions motors, which are discontinued. I think Matt was saying they were quite expensive to buy now, and there are some Chinese sort of counterfeit versions which, by all accounts, are pretty good performance-wise and a fraction of the cost. So again, it's an internal detail. We don't sit there and get you to take the models apart. Maybe we should. That'd be great, actually. We'll film. All the winners have to take their models apart, and we'll
Oh, but the train ones, if they've got lining, they have to peel all the lining off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not if you designed it properly, you don't.
I'm watching all those videos
properly.
We should definitely do that.
You
have to take your model
You
apart.
can, and indeed I will, if I enter it again, take off the sides and the top of the boiler so you can see the mechanism inside, because from time to time it needs maintenance, and that would be a nightmare. I wish I'd remembered to do that on the Tendermind.
Okay, so we're still discussing custom parts. How far around the group did we get? So I think it was Jamie, and then was it Henry after that?
Yeah, it was Henry, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm quite happy seeing sort of the custom wheels, the custom rods, and the trimline tape. Personally, I draw the line kind of there, like how they are in the awards, but if other people want to draw the line somewhere else for their own models, I don't mind. But I do think it'll be quite interesting next year if we had a category purely for pure Lego models to see what you get. Because it'll be interesting because it's kind of a different style of building when you can't use custom rods or wheels.
We actually discussed that a little bit, and it was raised by a couple of people on the Facebook page last year. And I think whilst it's nice, it's one of those. It's kind of nice to have, but sponsors like Tricks Bricks are willing to sponsor so much, and I didn't think we would get enough entries in a category like that. I mean, possibly we could have done it globally, I suppose, and just skip the regional section. Just for anybody watching, Chris is not feeling very well. He's got COVID at the moment.
Oh dear.
He's dying. But I'm sure he'll feel better. He's made it to the podcast, so this might be his last appearance. Who knows?
No, don't say that.
With me.
Clearly, we're cheering him up, possibly, or making him feel worse.
We've never cheered Chris up in our lives. Why would we start now?
Okay, so yes, we had Henry, and then John had a point on the custom parts and where to draw the line.
Yeah, it's all. I think it's all very personal. We've all got our own view on this. I'm a bit of a purist, but if I can finish a model and it's possible to finish it without using any custom parts, and it just about looks okay, I'd do that. And I think from that, going on from there, if I were to be judging a model, and there were two identical models, one that used all Lego and one that used custom parts, I would mark up the all Lego one rather than a separate category. There's something Henry mentioned a few minutes ago, and I thought that was a great idea, but it gets complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think I probably agree with that. I would mark up a model which had a fully Lego solution, for most things. So I guess an example of that is lining tape. Lining tape looks great on a model. I will admit it's very hard, but it is possible to do brick built lining to an extent, but virtually impossible for something like Will's A3 sitting in the background of his screen.
The way the boiler's built, you could never line it.
Yeah, it's just not possible for some models, I guess. Okay. Anybody else want to pitch in on that before we move on?
Yeah, just thinking about the mega blocks earlier, just to go back a bit. I can't show you because I don't have a bloody camera. But I've just put in the group chat a picture of a mega blocks piece. It's from a really sort of old and yet really big train set. I don't know if you could be able to quickly get the picture up through your phone or whatever.
Was that old West set?
Yeah, it's an old. What was that? Sorry.
Wild West.
No, I can't remember the name of it, but it's not to any kind of Lego scale nowadays. It's a proper massive set. It's basically got a few individual parts that kind of stand out, and one of them was a kind of shiny whistle piece, and that's something I've stuck on a bunch of models every now and then, just because it has that unique shape to it. Because it's a Mega Bloks piece and not a Lego piece, despite having its own unique shape, I don't know if something like that would be allowed.
No, it would not. If it was internal, I mean, like I said, we're not going to make you tear the model apart. Possibly, I don't know. I really fancy doing that now. But
I love this piece for a whistle. The little bar clip connection.
Yeah, they're cool.
It looks like a whistle. You can get it in gold.
Yeah,
and Carter will lose it in your garden.
many times.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he did.
In the garden specifically.
We set up the playout in the garden in the summer.
Oh, right.
That short period between when we were allowed to see each other and when the weather became awful again.
Yeah, that one weekend probably.
Yes.
Yes. I only lost that part and possibly a couple of others. Who knows?
I think it was only that part. I haven't worked out what else you've lost
yet. Okay. Anything else on? It was parts discussion, wasn't it? Nope. I think we can move on. The Mega Bloks word has ruined the mood. Okay.
Come on.
Not a dirty word.
I will say Mega Bloks does have some very interesting elements that Lego could do with releasing themselves.
1.5 jumpers. 1.5 jumpers.
Yes, that would be great. Okay, so where can we go from here? I think, is there any more discussion around rules? Actually, worth mentioning, so I don't think we covered it at the start, one change to rules this year is last year you had to submit under a real name. This year we're allowing entries under nicknames and pseudonyms, handles, whatever you want to use. Try and keep them clean.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be a bit dodgy. Someone tries to sign up under XXX Sephiroth. Rubbish.
Language.
Yep. Okay.
Sephiroth is not a name we say.
Censor it if you want to.
Yeah, you've just added an editing job for me.
Yeah. Making life hard. That's why I'm here.
Nora has something to say.
Yeah, any other rules that you would change personally? I think we've covered it fairly well.
Just imagine if someone's got like 10 really good trains and he knows he's going to win, enters each one underneath a different name.
Yeah, that was sort of part of the thing. I guess they would have to create multiple email accounts, and I guess there's a bit of community policing there as well, in that potentially, particularly if the models have been posted on Flickr or other sites, I'd like to think potentially some other members of the train community would say, well, actually, that build is submitted, but they can only win one category once, although it does give them a bit of an unfair advantage probably. But I would say quality over quantity.
Definitely.
Okay.
I did have one we were discussing it before we started. I personally feel like the categories, the national categories, should be based upon the nationality of the prototype, not the nationality of the builder. I mean, as I've said many times before, if British Bricks was allowed to enter in the the European category, I would definitely never win instead of probably never win. But I feel like it would be a fairer contest.
It is a bit of a weird quirk of the awards, and actually, when we were first kind of planning it, we didn't really think it would be so much of an issue. But actually, there are particularly British locomotives. There are builders in America. So Trace obviously builds a lot of British locos, and he's not the only one. There's also builders in Asia who were building. In fact, one of the Asian winners of the steam locomotive was a German loco build, wasn't it? I think. And there are plenty of Japanese builders who seem to love building British locos as well. So
that's true. Yeah.
The problem is then that would become even more complex than having 4 regions, because you then need a British loco and then would it be fair to lump
still European? Middle East and all those other places.
That's maybe it's too late to change it now, but maybe next year the LNUR award should be for any British locomotive by a builder anywhere. So we're not, because at the moment it's only restricted to UK builders building. Well, actually, they could build anything.
Well, you could do both, I suppose. Looking at both. Not just the builder or not just the model, just so they can show off more.
Yeah, I feel like the Brick Train Awards is enough work without making it even more complex.
Also, we'd have to exclude Americans just to annoy Matt.
And Trace.
And Trace. Well, no, Trace doesn't build Americans, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I would think, because all of the LNUR members vote on the LNUR award winners, I would think that most LNUR members would vote for British locomotives, because that's largely what they like and or build. So I couldn't see like an American diesel submitted in the UK winning the LNUR award. Matt might vote for it. I might vote for it if it looks nice, but yeah, that's a good one. Yep. Any more, or are we about done on that topic? I think we can get around to the final question then. So if you could choose to add a category next year, which category would you add for the awards? I am going to start with I'll go with Levi first.
I think I'd probably split the TFOL locomotive category into steam and then diesel/electric. You just
want steam and other.
Yeah, just to increase my chances of winning. But
what he wants is steam and boxes.
Yeah. Steam and things that go in the bin.
There's boxes and wedges.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Henry, which category would you add if you could?
I'd add in a fantasy locomotive category for all the ones not based on a real thing.
We did have quite a few fantasy locomotives, and I guess this is it's kind of at the whim of the judges as to whether they like that or they prefer locomotives based on a prototype. But there are some points within the judging criteria for the locomotives, at least, to allow for fantasy rather than prototype. But a separate category, I think that's another one which they're just probably not enough entries to justify that. But then creating its own category might create more entries for it, I suppose. It's one of those weird situations. Jamie.
Well, I know this comes under other a lot, but I definitely like an own individual narrow gauge category. But then again, I might just ramp down the interest in other, because other is quite general and narrow gauge might be a part of it, might not leave much else. I know also it's doing like your steam, your diesel and electric, and you've got any multiple units, they just fall into those categories. Maybe just a a section for multiple units would be quite good as well.
Potentially, there might just be enough entries to justify a multiple units category, I suppose.
Well, I'll be submitting half the nominations for that, won't I, with my narrow gauge stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, narrow gauge category might be fun. That seems to be. Again, I don't think there's enough interest in the community to support an entire category for that, because then.
No tracks available. I feel like there is.
I think it's taken off
for it. Yeah, give it another year, and possibly we could have a narrow gauge category. We'll see how it goes.
It may be a bit niche, but they wouldn't sell the track if they didn't think it would sell.
I think that would generate a lot of interest from Australia. The narrow gauge categories, particularly Tunis Davey, all those guys who do that stuff. Yeah,
has a lovely narrow gauge stuff as well, and the Puffing Billy layout was really nice as well. We'll go with John next, because I usually pick him last. So
yeah, I think almost sidestepping the actual locomotive design, but something that's a mechanized feature. It could be automatic level crossing gates, or it could be onboard uncouplers. Or something, I thought, or maybe a pantograph that raises and lowers itself, rather than concentrate on the locomotive, but on a functional part that acts like a real part of a railway would be quite interesting.
Or, for example, what about some sort of gronk which had a decoupling system built into it?
Well, that's an idea.
Or mechanically controlled points.
A gronk that drops itself on the floor for you.
John, would you say like a tilting train might come under that category, you know?
James about 7 years old.
Yeah, you're just creating categories for you to win, aren't you?
That's how you win them. You make them yourself.
Can I have a William category?
If you sponsor prizes, maybe.
What is he going to
I'll give you £10.50 because not the
Willies or something?
I was going to say you could sponsor instructions. That'll get you to.
What about Luke then? So would you add a new category?
I like the idea of the fantasy locomotive, because I used to build, and I still got one of my engines here. It's a massive multiplex steampunk themed locomotive, just because it's something that's completely crazy, something that you would never see in real life. I just really think it's such a cool idea. The ability to build something. You've got loads of different shapes of bricks and colors. You could make something truly unique, and potentially these awards could be the only place where you could see something like that, unless you dig far enough on somewhere like Flickr or YouTube. But yeah, fantasy locomotive theme in particular is that would have my backing.
Chris, do you fancy chirping up, or are you just happy listening?
A category for most unusual part. For example, Sam's P2, is it P2?
Yeah.
The bucket handle thing you used.
That's cool. I think
so basically you put a picture of your loco or whatever, and then a close up on a certain part that you think people wouldn't think.
No, that's a good thought, I think. Yeah, that's really good idea.
Certainly make more of looking at the designs more closely. And I've been talking to my friend Kaz, who's now a writer for New Elementary, about maybe we can get her on a podcast and examine some of the logos in finer detail and pick out some of the nice part usage. Was there a model in the awards that won last time? Was that Sam's P2 that used the magnifying glass as the round windows as well?
No, but
I know his Terrier does, but I don't think that.
Right. Okay.
A lot of people's Terriers do that. Actually, it's quite a nice little idea.
It does look pretty nice, yeah. Okay, I think we've done Levi, haven't we? Henry.
We've done me for the category.
Oh, have we? Will?
I suggested
trains. To be honest, largely echoing Henry and Jamie's suggestions. I don't like the idea of truly fantasy locos being in the main line, because you are immediately marked down. I mean, not so bad if you're basically like doing a Final Fantasy loco, because you've got a prototype that the judges can look at and go, is it recreating that? But like the pure fantasy ones, you can't look at the prototype. You effectively just lost those points. There's no way the judges can really account for that.
I think it's personal taste. They wouldn't be marked down, but then maybe if a judge isn't particularly into fantasy.
Yeah, but if I'm a judge and I'm given an A3 and one of Henry's strange steampunk locos, I'm going to go, that one I understand, and that one is one of Henry's strange steampunk locos. But if I'm on a separate category and it's like, these are not judged in the same way that I would judge an A3, I'd probably then be able to appreciate it for what's actually good about it.
It's strange steampunk locomotives, not mine.
Sorry.
Yeah,
and obviously, like, as Jamie said, like I think multiple units make sense because there's a sort of shared lineage, whether they're electric, battery, diesel, turbine, or the mythical steam one. There's a sort of shared lineage that makes sense in the same way as the shared lineage amongst diesels and the shared lineage amongst steam engines.
I think so too, yeah.
The development of a diesel-powered DMU is not the same as the development of a diesel locomotive, per se.
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I think some reasonable ideas there, some terrible ideas.
Okay, then that's
maybe,
fine.
maybe
Okay.
not terrible. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else to add, or we can wrap up? Okay, so yeah, we'll sort of close the podcast there. Thanks for listening. If you've managed to get this far, all the information for the Brick Train Awards is on bricktrainawards.com. It opens the 1st of February for entries to the 28th of February. The winner's announcement will be on the 5th of March, which is a Friday. I don't think we've quite set a time for that, but I imagine it'll be sort of 1800 GMT, because I think that's what we did last time. So it probably a bit of a, is that an early morning or a very late night for the Aussies? I can't remember.
Well, they're going to win everything anyway, so they can get up for us.
They'll just wake up. Yeah, they'll wake up to prize notifications. Yeah, okay. So thanks again to our members, Will, Miller, Jamie, Henry, John, Levi, and Luke. And we'll end the podcast there. Thanks for listening.